Greetings everyone, and welcome back to the VGC Draft League Season 3, and we made it to playoffs. We're in our first round versus Lumenessence, and things are going to get tricky from here on out, so I'm going to have to do some things a little bit weirder than usual. At least that's the plan for this week. And you see we're up against a pretty scary Landorus Annihilate top-heavy team here. Everything else is kind of not really like eye-catching as far as like what quote-unquote good Pokemon are. However, they do all work really well in tandem with each other. Just off the top of my head, Kilowattrel and Electrode, the Hisuian Electrode, they can both try and discharge spam next to the Landorus. Electrode even has the benefit of if Kilowattrel goes Volt Absorb, they can pretty much both spam their own discharges. Electrode gets to 4 times resist electric and won't get paralyzed, so it's not under threat of Kilowattrel's discharge. And as you can see, I don't really have a ton of protection versus electric moves. Obviously, I do have Rillaboom, and I have Iron Thorns, which resist them very well, and Crocodile, which is completely immune to it. However, with 2 Ice Pokemon on their team, and Crocodile not really being too effective versus the Landorus, combine that with the fact that Landorus threatens both Iron Thorns and Rillaboom with its natural stab typings, it makes it tough to defend against that particular threat. But even if we solve for that issue, we still have to also solve for the issue that is Annihilate. Annihilate can go one of 2 routes typically. That's the Choice Scarf route, where you throw out Final Gambit, get a free pickup, and that's pretty important considering that Heatran carries a lot of the damage on my team, and if they get rid of that, then the game could be over. It's really good into the Snow duo, Abomasnow and Articuno, into the Earthworm, and just provides a lot of coverage for my team. But if they're not going that, they're going the bulk up set, very likely with Terrifier, once again with Heatran in mind, as something that has to be dealt with. And I don't have a lot of coverage for something like Terrifier. We did pick up the Azumarill, so we can go with Liquidation to try and hit it when it does go into that Terra, if it goes into that Terra. We don't have anything that really one-shots that Pokemon, so it can wreak a lot of havoc if we're not careful. Oh, and the thing we have to keep an eye out for, also alongside the Annihilate, is this cheesy little Electrode combo where you go Bullet Seed into the Annihilate to immediately charge the Rage Fist to maximum strength. It's hard to cover all of that and play a solid game at the same time. So me and my single cell brain said, let's not play a solid game for this week. Let's get a little bit crazy here. So just off the top, Azumarill making its debut with the Assault Vest set. I was thinking about going Ice Spinner just so we can more quickly dispatch the Landorus, but I decided with the covers that we have overall, we could eventually get there if we get the right position, and still Liquidation will do quite a bit of damage regardless. If we tap into Terra Fairy, Play Rough will very likely make up for a lot of the damage that we'd be missing otherwise, especially if the Landorus goes Terra Flying. Espeon is a little bit of a weird pivot from what I normally do. You can see it's got double screens with Sunny Day, so we're covering for the potential ice matchup, just getting rid of the threat of Aurora Veil by pressing Sunny Day, and then protecting our carries, Heatran, Iron Thorns with those screens there. It also helps if I put it next to the Iron Thorns, where either I was going Terra Flying or I was going Terra Fairy here. Ultimately just decided on Terra Flying, which we'll get into in a second. And then that covers for a lot of what the Annihilate may want to Terra into. So if it doesn't Terra, it gets hit by a Terra Blast flying from the Iron Thorns. If it does Terra, very likely it's going to be something like Terra Fire or Terra Poison. Psychic does cover the Terra Poison. And then we still do a good chunk neutral to the Terra Fire version. So with it being faster as well, that also helps me cover for some of the issues that I foresee with this game. But starring again, Fletchender is coming back around to try and get us going with the Gale Wings Tailwind. Also with Protect, we did review some of their games and we did spot some areas where they might try and protect on certain turns. So if we can get past that and blow them up with Iron Thorns or Heatran, we may be in business. I was considering something like Will-O-Wisps to make sure that I could cover for the Earthworm or even the Landorus if I don't find the right position right away. But ultimately went for Sunny Day, again trying to cover for that that ice matchup in case they bring it. I know Heatran looks really good into it, but they do have some outs, some maneuvers that could put me on the back foot if I'm not careful. But also boost Heatran's heat wave damage, as well as Iron Thorn's fire punch damage, you see below that. Heatran's is business as usual, protect, 3 move, nothing's really changed, life orb. We did spec into enough speed so that we could get over the electrode if we did go for tailwind. Same thing for the Iron Thorns. You'll notice it's not as bulky as usual. Still trying to hit that same speed mark to make sure that we can get over everything once the tailwind goes down. But again, it's rocking Fire Punch, Rock Slide, Terra Blast, Wild Charge. I had a really tough time with the set. I knew I wanted to go clear Amulet set because of the Landorus, but Ice Punch versus something like Rock Slide or even the Terra Blast is something very tricky to navigate. The whole premise is using the Terra Blast so we can get around the Annihilate with either flying or fairy, and then of course Natural Stab with Rock Slide or Wild Charge. But we still also have to take care of that pesky Earthworm, which then calls for Low Kick or Fire Punch. Since I was going the route of Sunny Day, getting the Fire Punch boosted by the Sunny Day and threatening the burn on Earthworm as well was the route that I decided on. From there, you still kind of want Ice Punch because you're getting ahead of the Landorus, and we know that's going to be a major threat. But it's hard to really gauge whether it's appropriate to go for that or just stick with the Rock Slide to make sure you get maximum coverage, make sure that you can hit both it and its partner, very likely something like Kilowattrel, maybe a Bomb of Snow to toss up the Aurora Veil, because Ice and Ground combined together as offensive moves is really good into the team. So it was really tough, but ultimately I decided we'll just stick with Rock Slide. We spec the team out that we're very likely to be faster, even if we're at like a neutral speed, whether it's tailwind on both sides up or tailwind on both sides down, where we can get there either with Rillaboom, who was really spec'd out in the speed, or the Azumarill, can just eat a hit, get a liquidation, and follow up Aqua Jet on the following turn. Speaking of Rillaboom though, this is the wildest I've made this set. I've decided I can have some fun and stop being on Assault Fest duty for once. But yeah, taking a page out of Jamie Boyd's book with a Weavile set they had a while ago. King's Rock Fake Out Fling. Of course, the Fake Out is something that's generically useful for this Pokemon. We've seen it time and time again. But my concern is that there could be like double attacks to stop the Fake Out, and I really need to stop something like Landorus or Annihilate from going too hard, particularly the Annihilate if it's on the bulk up set. So I decided to try and make it as fast as I possibly could. Even with Tailwind, it's just still going to outspeed everything, and then Fling for a second flinch with the King's Rock. From there, Woodhammer with max attack Jolly is still going to chunk everything out, going even Terra Grass for even more damage if we can get ahead of the opponent in speed, and then Low Kick just for coverage once again into that Earthworm. So yeah, pretty funky stuff this week, but I do have a little bit of faith in both Iron Thorns and Heatran. A little bit skeptical about not having something like Salamence here, because normally it's carrying the other side of my special offense, but we're all fully into physical defense here, which can be a lot of trouble if they decide to bring they want to bring Iron Defense Earthworm, and I have to reserve Heatran for the entirety of the game in that case, which means I may be missing out on some damage. Who knows? But yeah, let's go ahead and take a look and see what happens. Alright, game one, and my opponent is showing no ice here. So one of my fears has kind of come to fruition about whether or not Tyranitar could freely get rid of something like Rock Slide for an Ice Punch here, but we just have to make do with what we got. Rocking the Annihilate, Landorus, Electrode Sui, the Earthworm, Slowking Galar, and the Kilowattrel. You see the Terras here. Annihilate is Terrafire as expected. Landorus Therian just for coverage. Terra Flying as per usual. Hisui and Electrode with the Terra Electric. Earthworm with the Terra Fire. Pretty smart, because with the Heatran, even if I try and use Heat Wave, if they've saved their Terra the entire game, I can't hit it with Earth Power thanks to the Earth Eater ability, and then the fire damage is reduced, and of course they also avoid the burn if I decide to go Will-O-Wisp on either Fletchinder or the Heatran, so really good stuff. Slowking Galar with Terra Grass and Kilowattrel Terra Ghost. This is pretty much a nightmare for Rillaboom here. I'm not sure it can make as much work as I had hoped for it to do, but we're just going to stick with it and see what happens. Either way, here's the start of game number one. And we decided we're just going to go ahead and bust out the Fletchinder. just go hard, feel out game number 1, and see what we can get away with as we lead into game number 2. But they're going to respond with Kilowattrel and Landorus. So this is one of the threats we were worried about, potential of discharge spam here. I'm going to go ahead and call out the protect on Landorus here and protect myself, so I make sure I get up a tailwind. But in response, they go ahead and get their own tailwind up as well. Very likely they're focus sash. This is what I was expecting at that point. So even if the heat wave does manage to get them down to 1 HP, they were still safe no matter what. Now the air slash was headed into the Heatran along with the stomping tantrum to fully cover for the Terra bug is what I was using on the Heatran, so really good on them. Decided not to Terra just because I was kind of stuck in that position, so we just had to make do with that. They swap out the Landorus for the Earthworm, protect with the Kilowattrel, expecting to fake out into that slot. I decided I was going to try and chase down the Landorus, and here's threat number 2, Earthworm. And now I'm in a lot of trouble now that the Heatran went down. This is one of the things we talked about in the analysis. We really needed to reserve that Heatran, but wasn't really confident in my switch-ins, what with Azumarill being in the back, under threat of getting discharged there. And now I'm forced to Terra Fairy so that I don't die to a discharge and get some damage down into the Kilowattrel, which is showing Focus Sash. Now my Rillaboom is paralyzed thanks to that discharge, and I am showing Low Kick for the first time. It's not going to make too much effect just yet. I kind of have to get ahead in the damage for it to really matter here. Even worse, with the -1 drop from the Landorus, it's not really doing too much damage here. But we're going to go ahead and Aqua Jet into the Annihilate just in case the Landorus decide to stay in. We could pick up a KO potentially. They swip in the Annihilate though, starting to charge up those Rage Fists if they have it. They swing back into the Landorus, unafraid of getting knocked out here. Get a -1 attack drop onto both Fletchinder and Azumarill, so I'm doing absolutely nothing. Even with Fletchinder, if I had Flare Blitz into the Earthworm, not really doing anything. A Will-O-Wisp might save me though, but still very, very tricky. They're in a commanding position here in this game number 1. I pretty much considered a loss here. Like, even though I'm chipping away at everything around the Earthworm, just making that happen, I can't get past the Earthworm. I have no tools left in the tank without that Heatran, or even without a special Salamence to kind of help out. Getting rid of the Vaporeon also is hurting me here as well because I have no haze to get rid of these Iron Defense boosts. But we're using all this time to kind of plan ahead for game number 2, kind of going through the motions. Fletchinder chipping out the Annihilate, they're getting a KO with the Body Press, and we're going to lead right back into the Rillaboom here, see if we can pick up anything. We do have one more turn of Tailwind, but we're not really long for this world. We can't really get past the Earthworm, who is now showing Terra Fire. They held on to Terra the entire game. That's how much of a commanding position they had with their team here. So I got a lot of ground to make up here in game number 2. And there's no need for them to switch up their strategy at this point. I have to respond to them, and my response is going to be the Iron Thorns this time. We're going to go ahead and show our tech. The Landorus with the Protect one more time. We're going to go ahead with a Feint here, try and chip them out with the Rock Slide, because they're still going to set up their own Tailwind. We can't stop that. But if we can call out the Protect here, we get some chip damage, which we do, and we get to finish off the Kilowattrel with the Feint, so there's no threat of them discharging into my Iron Thorns, which is now Terra Flying. We get to avoid the Stomping Tantrum all the same. We get a Feint on the following turn to knock out the Landorus, so everything is going to plan. We even get a burn from the Fire Punch onto the Earthworm for all of our efforts, so we're in control of this game. They're forced to Terra Fire onto the Annihilate. They're using an uncharged Rage Fist because they don't have anything else they can hit my Iron Thorns with. We go ahead and Terra Blast into that slot, get a huge chunk of damage there, and their Tailwind goes down just at the appropriate time so that mine is up, and I get a Rock Slide ahead of the Annihilate and get a KO as well. Now here we're going to go ahead and speed through this. I do have a Heatran in the back, which can just easily Heat Wave this Earthworm. But of course I don't want to switch it in raw and just immediately lose it, and then I'm still, and now I'm really struggling to get past these Iron Defenses, because even with a burn, these Body Presses are still chipping away at my Pokemon. So I decided to just continue to spam Feint, Fire Punch into the Earthworm, slowly chip it out. It's going to slowly go down, but it's going to guarantee get there. Right now the Iron Thorns does eventually go down, and we have to bring in Rillaboom. Same plan, Feint, Low Kick, just chipping away. The grassy terrain is helping it with the healing a little bit, but it's going to get there. It's not doing enough with my recovery as well. So eventually we do get it down with the Feint and the Low Kick. Once again, just optimization. We could bring in the Heatran, but just don't want to miss that Heat Wave and then somehow lose off of this place. So just dragging out as well as I can. If I can at least get it low, I can finish off with the Flash Cannon, which I'm carrying. So that leads us into the final game, game number 3. And now we're each going with our game number 2 leads, and I have to be really careful about this one because I kind of showed my hand in game number 2 with what I wanted to do, and I go for a Terra Flying, predicting a potential stomping tantrum into the Iron Thorns just to get rid of it so it can't do what it did the last game. They called me out on it though. Discharge, Rock Slide for a double KO. Kind of reminiscent of my my final week in the regular season. So with a Terragon and both Pokemon dispatched, I am completely cooked here. Got 4 Pokemon at full health to go through, and not a lot in the tank to really make that happen. To make matters worse, even if I go for a fake out here, they got the double protect. They haven't used their the Tailwind yet, so even if they put the Tailwind up, they're going to be in full control regardless as far as speed goes. Now, I did spec for speed here with Heatran and Rillaboom, so there is a shot that I could do some things here, especially if I can get rid of the Kilowattrel in one Heat Wave. I go for a Fling onto the Landorus. They don't protect. They find the King's Rock and they get flinched. They may not have seen it the last game. The flinch did affect the Earthworm when I used low kick, but flinch into Landorus does get the flinch I was looking for. It gets me room to use Heat Wave. Unfortunately, misses the Landorus and misses a KO on the Kilowattrel, the only thing that probably could have saved the game. And then they get a Tailwind for all their efforts, allowing them to get ahead of the Landorus, or the Landorus to get ahead of me. Go for a Stomping Tantrum onto the Heatran. I do get a critical hit with the Wood Hammer from Rillaboom, so that buys me a little bit of room there. But while this Kilowattrel is this Kilowattrel is still a threat here. It's got charge up. It can still hit me with Air Slash or Discharge. They go for a Discharge here just for maximum coverage with the charge up, just to make full use of that. And you can see even with resistance from the Rillaboom, even with Heatran being still pretty bulky, even with the Life Orb set, the Discharge does some considerable damage, meanwhile Earthworm is fully protected. But at this point, Tailwind's up. Whatever's in the bag surely can dispatch my Rillaboom and Heatran, especially with this paralysis down on the Rillaboom. And Terra still intact, another Terra Fire from the Earthworm, so it's not taking any damage from either of my Pokemon. Started with Heatran and Rillaboom to carry my team. It's going to end with them falling down here. For this one, I'm also going to speed through it here. Not much I can really do. I try and protect to call them out on something, but Sludge Bomb dispatches the Rillaboom quite easily here. Go for a Heat Wave just to get some damage down, but there's not really much I can do. Whether it's a Psychic, whether it's the Body Press, Heatran's just going to fall down. And that is the end of my run in this draft league. A little bit of a bittersweet ending, falling once again for the second time in a row in the first round. But I still had fun with this one. It was a little bit of a tricky matchup to try and work my way around, at least from my perspective. And I don't think it did terrible, just small things here and there. If I could have had the Ice Punch on the on the Iron Thorns, if the Heat Wave in this game 3 manages to touch the Landorus and also KO the Kilowattrel, maybe things look a little bit different there. But not too much we can do about it. Just GG's to my opponent and good luck in the remaining rounds there. But that is the end for me. Yeah. Not too disappointed, and all I'm gonna do is plan for, or look forward to the next season. We may or may not participate, and of course, if I do, I can probably still do some coverage like this. For the rest of playoffs, though, I'm gonna be honest. I'm focusing, kind of pivoting more into TCG in my life right now. So this time, I'm not really too interested in covering the Draft League's playoffs. But either way, if you like this video and you want to see more content from me in the future, especially in regards to these Draft Leagues, or maybe I'll even do some TCG stuff later on, let me know in the comments below. Leave a like, I'll always appreciate it, and I will see you next time. Take care, everyone.